Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. This is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week, and of course, at the end of the episode, I will be discussing the viewer's pick of the week. So in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week. And of course, subscribe, like this video, and comment, because it really does help the channel. Now, moving into my 11th book this week, so I had 11 books, and that was Silk, issue 4, and I've been very disappointed with this book. I really like Cindy Moon, but this mini-series that was supposed to be an ongoing series has really struggled, I think, to find its plot. This issue, and I believe last issue, if I remember correctly, were both exposition issues, and this was by far the most expositionary issue I've seen in a long time. This whole thing was the villain explaining why she's a villain, and by the end, I guess going to team up with Cindy Moon, but really Silk is hardly in her own comic, and that's very disappointing. And then having, a visual medium like comics to be so flashbacky and, again, wordy to the extent of just explaining things to you instead of organically telling the story was very disappointing with this issue. And honestly, I would say the whole arc as a whole, and again, the whole mini-series. So overall, I'm going to give that 1.5 stars. The only thing I truly liked about this issue is probably the artwork. I still like that YA feel to it, but really, I haven't been loving this miniseries, sadly, as much as I want to. Now, moving on to number 10, which is another book I wish I liked more, and that is X-Men issue 2. So X-Men, it's the flagship book. I want to like X-Men. I liked Hickman's X-Men for the most part, but I've been dropping X-Men titles left and right. I think the only one I really have right now, besides this title, is Marauders, and that's one I won't drop because it's Kitty Pryde's book. I genuinely like that book, but even that I don't think has been as good as it usually is. And this book, it feels like it's trying to be the Jonathan Hickman book, still trying to play in that playpen, but also trying to be a superhero book. And I just don't really care about any of the character arcs or the bigger story of what's going on in X-Men right now with the new planet and stuff like that. If you're going to go super just into being a hero again, I just want to feel like that book again. I feel like it really does have one foot in the Hickman ballpark, and then another foot in trying to be a New York X-Men book. And in the long run, it doesn't really feel like it has its own voice. And, I haven't really been able to feel any of the stories from when it comes to character arcs to the overall plot. So I don't know if I want to pick up more X-Men. I do want to give this a fair shot, but at the same time, there hasn't really been any enjoyment for me. Even the artwork, I think, is just pretty simple and could be stronger for a flagship book. So overall, I'm giving that 2 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, a book that I've been loving and sad to see the penultimate issue so low, and that is the Immortal Hulk, issue 49. What a filler issue, honestly. I loved the last issue. I loved the issue before that. Both were my pick of the weeks. And here, I really feel like it stumbled because it was trying to tell a different type of story. It was kind of this a bit expositionary. You have 2 columns where, the right and the left, we get to see just plain old text, and then you have the images in the middle, kind of like a picture book. And I don't really feel like it utilized the medium as well as it could have. Again, I don't really know if it told the strongest story going into this last issue. I mean, I hope to love the next issue and that the finale sticks the landing. But this one just felt kind of fillerish just to get to the point of that last issue. I do applaud that I tried doing something experimental, and that was cool. I just don't know if it landed for me. So I'm giving that 2 stars. Artwork was good, but it was kind of hard to focus on. I didn't really feel like I saw many of the pages because I kept going to the side saying, okay, what words are being told? So I just don't feel like it married the comic book medium as well as it could have. So like I said, I'm giving that 2 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, another book I was disappointed with this week, and that is Sinister War, issue 2. Another book, issue 1, was my pick of the week last 2 weeks, I think. And this one kind of had the same faults as the last Amazing Spider-Man issue that came out last week. And I guess every Amazing Spider-Man issue from this run, nothing really happens. And this whole issue is just like, okay, well, how did the villains team up with Kindred? And that's it. That's it. That really happens in this issue. And it just feels like it's prolonging to get to the end. And I'm just like, all right, just tell us what the ending is at this point. It's not building anything. There's no tension being built. It just feels like it's stalling. And I'm just, I spent $5 on this book. Like, I want some more meat on the bone. And even, there's 4 artists on this book. I will say that I will say this issue, not even just this book. I will say that the artwork looked consistent, so it wasn't like, okay, this is a drastically new style, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like a very clean book, because there's 4 other artists, and it has to do with time. It's not because of any style reason, and that takes you away from the book. So overall, I just felt like this was rushed, and just nothing special, which really upsets me, because I genuinely really liked the last issue. And it felt like this was just an action issue and just more teases and not really any follow through. So giving that 2 stars. Actually, I think I'm giving that 2 stars. Let me see. I gave that 2 stars. Okay, that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is A Nice House on the Lake, issue 3. I loved the first issue for this book. I thought it introduced all the characters really well. Since then, I feel like I don't know where the story is really going, because every issue has to do with a new character. So this issue is the question mark character, so I don't know if he's I don't know which character he actually is, honestly. But we do get to see a little bit of his background connected to the antagonist of the story, how they knew each other, and what that meant in his life. And we really get to see that with every story. Definitely the best element of the book is that. But the end of the world aspect, you only get it from the beginning. And after that, it's been kind of a slow burn. We haven't really learned much about it. Like, we get small teases in this issue, but I don't know if it's enough. Let's see how many issues we have left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 question mark. I think this was supposed to be a 12-issue maxi series, but they show the symbols each time an issue passes. So I'm actually not sure how many issues it's supposed to be. Maybe it's just 10. But yeah, this issue and I guess the book in general, I want to see the bigger picture. And I think it's been harder to follow each character because we are getting just spotlights on these characters, but not enough from the other characters. They don't really feel like an ensemble like they did in that first issue. The artwork is splendid for this book, and just the layout of this book's really interesting. For me personally, I just don't know if I've become as invested as I was with that first issue. We'll see what type of week it is when issue 4 comes out, if I'm going to pick up the next one. But I was a little disappointed with this series overall. Moving on to number 6, and I gave that 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Batman issue 111, another book that is really stalling, and ironically, it is the same writer. And they're stalling because of Fear State, which is going to be a huge deal in Batman. We have the free comic book day book coming out in like 2 weeks, and then after that, we have a lot of tie-ins. We have obviously the main title tying in, Urban Legends. We have Nightwing tying in, so it's going to be a huge event. But did we need this lead up? I kind of wish they did another story in between all this instead of focusing on the Peacekeepers and Scarecrow, because I don't really feel like they've done enough. But it was cool to see some of the villains and Batman teaming up with these characters who've become, maybe better people, like Ghostmaker and Harley Quinn and now Miracle Molly. But I just don't think they gave enough in this issue to even warrant maybe picking this one up. I feel like this whole arc was pretty skippable. Why not just start with Fear State? Artwork is really good, though. And again, from an action point of view, I think there are some good moments here, but not enough to really impress me for this issue. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5. And that's Stillwater, issue 9. A really solid issue. I think this did a good job at continuing the story after some big OMG moments. The last issue, we had the children having their own society. Things are blowing up. We had this kind of big character moment with the sheriff. So there's been some really good issues for Stillwater. So I do feel like they need to slow things down a bit. And I think this issue did a good job at that. It didn't feel like anything was being stalled, but also didn't feel like another thing was being thrown at you. You really get to develop the relationships between the children and our main character, who is also a child of Stillwater, and what exactly that means to grow up and not to grow up, and what that means physically and mentally when your mind is growing, but you are not, especially as a child, like a baby. There's some conversation about that as well. I really like that section. And then we also get to see some of the other players of the town play a part and see what they're up to after the explosion, and who's taken over this town and who's in power, who's gonna kill another person. There's definitely some good drama in this issue, and you just don't know what's gonna happen next, which is always nice to have in an indie book. But I like that the children were definitely in control, and that's a big part of the story, and seeing them finally have a voice in a world that's all about adults, even though the children are technically adults. So very interesting issue overall. I'll give this one 3.5 stars. Artwork was pretty good. There wasn't anything too exciting in this one, so nothing that the artist could really explore that much in this issue. But pretty good talking heads issue when it came to the visuals. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is American Vampire, 1976, issue 10. The last issue of American Vampire, which I am sad to see. I love American Vampire, even though, it's taken, I think, about 10 years for them to finish. You always knew there was going to be another chapter and another volume. And this is the last one. And overall, I think it ended pretty well. Most of it is an action issue, and we get to see, the vampires team up to beat the big bad, and even America team up to beat the big bad. But it really is a character study of Skinner, why he made Pearl an American vampire. And obviously there's a bigger story about America and the world view of America, of individualism and collective societies, and which one is America. And it's kind of interesting to see, it's kind of a blend of both. And then the idea of good and evil between Skinner and Pearl, and that goes into what a vampire is. You're kind of both. So, I think there was a lot of interesting themes in general that were explored here from a character's perspective, and I guess a bigger perspective of society. So I thought that was really interesting, and probably the best part of the finale. And then also it leaves us open-ended in the present day. Pearl is still alive. A lot of the characters are still alive. So let's say 10 years from now, 20 years from now, a year from now, the creative team wants to pick up on the story again, or maybe another person, depending on what style they want to use for the book. But they've had other writers and creators take over the book. Maybe they'll allow other creators to take over some story as well. I think there's opportunity for this to continue, and I think that's great as well. I think those are always the best endings. So, I like this one. I don't think it was a big cry fest. I kind of wanted that. I think still the best finale in a lot of regards, even though it wasn't a finale, was Henry's death and that moment in the book. But, I still think this was really solid and still had a lot of heart. So I'm giving that 4 stars. Artwork was really good. There's some good action against some, solid emotional moments in this issue as well. And, I think everything married pretty well here. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Crushin' Lobo, issue 3. Definitely one of my favorite DC books out right now, and really does Mariko Tamaki style in the best way possible. We get to see a kind of more character-driven YA story with Crush dealing with a breakup, while also dealing with her daddy issues. And this is a little bit of a slower burn here, where Crush actually does interact with Lobo. It's like, maybe he has changed. And then, of course, Lobo hasn't changed and screws her over, and now she's in jail. So there's definitely a good ending here that's going to drive us to even more story. There's some good humor in this issue as well, with a bug character who eats everybody's heads, including his family's heads. So that was a really funny moment. And the artwork is so good for the emotional beats, and I think plays well with the style of story that's being told here. Again, a more I guess, slice of life style book. I don't know if it's completely slice of life, but it kind of leans into themes of slice of life. But yeah, overall, really solid. I thought it was a good ending, even though, it's what you expected. There are some good emotional beats here. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, and that is 7 Secrets, issue 11. Another solid book with a shocking ending where more secrets are revealed. The character with the mask, you think, okay, he's completely loyal to his people. He's given up so much for his people, and then has a secret romance with Amon. And, in the beginning, you're like, okay, something's up with him because he says you can't trust anybody. He's like, can we trust you? And then by the end of the issue, it's like, yeah, you can't, but then it's, again, the double secret that he's actually in a romantic relationship with our villain. So I really like that. And then overall, we're still getting some more of Casper and him getting into this world and the more nitty-grittiness of the world and his innocence kind of being taken away. And there's some good action moments with that too, tying it with emotional moments and, obviously having the callback of the narrative as well really helps in this situation. But really good issue from, again, the Amon stuff to our main character. I thought it was a well-balanced issue. Really good artwork. Also goes into, I think there's a good level of action in this issue, some good reveals, some good emotions. Just overall a very well-balanced issue. So I'm giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Firepower, issue 14. I love this book, and I continue to really like this arc because it's back in the suburbs, and I really think this issue did a good job at every character having a moment. So Doug, the brother, wanting to have fire powers and not. The daughter only being able to use her fire powers once and being like, okay, how do I, use this? And also being attacked because she has these fire powers now. Our main character actually is not dealing with as much. The wife is a little scared. Is like, hey, we live a very humble life. Are we good enough for the life you lived? And then by the end of the issue, you get to see the ex-girlfriend back and everyone finds out that she's alive. So that was a really great cliffhanger. As the more mythology stuff is building with these snakes and attacking the daughter and also being related to the ex's father, there's a lot of good kind of soap opera moments in this issue, mixed in with some good mythology, mixed in with some really good action. A really well-balanced issue for a very solid arc for a really great series. So overall, giving that 4.25 stars. That's my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely in the comments below, let me know what your pick of the week was, because the viewer's pick of the week from last week was Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue 1, and that was actually the same pick of the week from me as well, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter, They Call Her Dancer, and for free on Webtoons is Slice of Life. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Comic Book Weekly, we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news for our weekly comic book podcast. Thanks, guys. Bye.